You know, Mr. Barnett was here right now. Oh my God. That Marshall's beautiful. I have my territory, Pat, with looking. He'd be a great partner for you. My boy. I just figured do a little math sitting there a while ago, and I was very moved to hear that Kevin and his wife have been married 35 years. Do you realize in wrestling vernacular that's 105 years? Hell of an accomplishment, right? And I want to thank you guys, because some of you old guys haven't even got up to go pee yet. I know you want to. We're coming to the end here. We're the ninth inning, baby. This has been a well-oiled machine tonight. Would you not agree? It's not a 3-hour deal. Huh? Come on, let's go. And now we are ready for the big finish, the main event. Two of my favorite people in the whole wide world coming up here next. The man that preceded me as in the JJ role at the WWE, the most hated role in wrestling. Anybody that got fined, got a bad payday, got a bad booking, anything negative in your life that you refuse to accept reality and your responsibility for, you can blame it on JJ. Then you can blame it on me. So, and we love that. You know, I still have JJ's calculator, little calculator that I did the payroll on. I kept it. And now that I'm back in WWE, I think I didn't steal it. I'm still an employee now, so I'm good. I love JJ. He taught me a lot. And I think Tully Blanchard, I thought about this. Of all the wrestlers I've seen in 40 plus years, I never saw a more natural, athletic heel. He was an amazing heel. And he proved that you don't have to be a giant to get over if your work is fundamentally sound and your psychology is on point. If you're that good on the canvas, if you're a grappling Rembrandt on your canvas, you can be very, very successful. And there's no doubt in my mind that our 2017 Iron Mike Award winner was at least a Rembrandt on his canvas. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here tonight to be on the stage to award Tully Blanchard the Mike Mazurki Award, and to present that award, another C.A.C. award winner, WWE Hall of Famer, J.J. Dillon. So gentlemen,
Well, it's great to be here tonight, and especially see this great crowd. And I want to start by congratulating all the honorees tonight. I want to single out Dave Meltzer in particular, because this was a long time coming. He's been doing that newsletter for 35 years. It used to be something that got passed around the dressing room, and if you got caught with it, you might get fired. But it was before the internet and before these podcasts, and we a lot of times didn't know what was going on around the rest of the country, and the Observer would get passed around among the boys, and that's how we got our information. Dave mentioned Waterloo, and he was honored last year. That was the first step, and I was honored too. We were there together, and I got to spend a little time with him and know him really for the first time in all these years. His parents were there, as he mentioned. My children were there, so that the awards were significant to us because we wanted loved ones there to share the moment with us. And one common theme that I've heard with everybody tonight is talking about the past and how they got here. And everybody had a different journey. And Dave kind of touched on it when he talked about the importance of our history and preserving our history. And he mentioned Steve Yohe, and there's J. Michael Kenyon, and Scott Teal, a whole lot of guys. And the problem I see is that the number of people who record our history and tell it are becoming fewer in number as they grow in years. And one of the tragedies is in the early days with the territories, a lot of the matches were on 2-inch Scotch tape, and they used to bicycle around to the towns, and at the end of 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it was, as tragically as it is, the promoters, being cost conscious, used to wipe them clean. That history was gone forever, and they would record over them to continue the bicycle around. So it was great to hear Brian Blair talk about some of the wonderful things that this organization does. But one important thing is that they are also perpetuating and preserving our history. There's a Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame that Tony Villano started 15 years ago in Amsterdam that's totally dedicated to that. And they recently relocated 2 years ago to Wichita Falls, Texas, and there's so much history in there that if you haven't been there, you need to go there. And I assume that everybody that's in this room is a wrestling fan, or you wouldn't be here tonight. And Dave mentioned Waterloo, and I went there the first time 3 years ago and was blown away. And the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum is in Waterloo, and the George Tragos Luthez Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame is housed inside the Dan Gable Museum. Again, it's another piece of the puzzle that is helping to preserve our history and our traditions. So it's important, as I talked about memberships and coming back in here and supporting this so that the stories keep getting told and that history doesn't die. And Dave Meltzer has been doing it for 35 years, and one of the really tough parts is, as so many of our icons pass on, one of the things that tragically I look forward to is that Dave Meltzer will write an in-depth bio on every one of them and has information in there. If I knew about it, a lot of it I've forgotten about it, and I read about people that I thought were, that I was close to, and I find things in there because he's I don't know where his resources and how he keeps it all straight, but I read about the bios of people that have passed. And it's been tough the last couple of years. I'm still struggling with the loss of Dusty Rhodes, I was very close to, and Roddy Piper, and the list of names goes on and on. So I encourage you to continue to come back this year, tell other people. I encourage you to go to Wichita Falls, to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame's new home. And somebody mentioned Kyle Klingman's here tonight. He's the director of the Dan Gable Museum, which houses the Tragos Hall of Fame. And you have to go there and see it. I'm a huge fan of Rob Schamberger, and he painted a mural in there that when I walked through the front door, not knowing what to expect, was this mural that was to the ceiling, 20 feet long, with a likeness of Danny Hodge and Luthez and Kurt Angle. And he, Rob, every inductee, every honoree that's been there, he's painted a portrait of and donated it. Archbishop Sanderson won the bid last year for that fantastic portrait of Nick Bockwinkel. It was into the thousands of dollars, and he very generously donated it to the Dan Gable Museum. If you go up there, that beautiful portrait is permanently on display there. So July 22nd and 24th, I think, right, Kyle, is induction weekend this year. It's Dusty Rhodes, Paul Orndorff, Magnum TA are be honored, Stan Hansen, and Brandon Raschke comes about every year, and Kurt Hennig, and so you're going to see some people that are icons in our business. And if you're a true fan, the Dan Gable Museum and the Thrego's Trace, that is Hall of Fame, should be on everybody's bucket list, and you really need to go up there. And last year, Tully Blanchard was there because his father, Joe Blanchard, was posthumously inducted into their Hall of Fame, and very deservedly so. And Tessa was there too, who, as somebody mentioned, is the third generation, so that the legacy of Blanchard name is in safe hands as we go forward. First met Tully, I was wrestling in Amarillo, '74. That's the first recollection I have of meeting Tully, and he was the quarterback for the West Texas State Buffaloes. Great athlete. And this is often the case, our paths go separate directions, and through things like the Observer, I knew much of where Tully went and what he did. And I'm not going to go through all the list of titles that he's held. You can read that in the bios and other things. But there's two things about Tully that stand out to me. A lot of guys in this business are successful tag wrestlers, and that's their niche, and that's their specialty. A lot of guys are single wrestlers that just very seldom get into tag situations because it takes a real high-level skill level to be able to do both. Tully Blanchard is one of those people that can do both. He and Arn Anderson were the first ever NWA World Tag Team Champions and later WWE World Tag Team Champions. The first. I think the Road Warriors followed them, and if I memory serves me right, they were the only other team that accomplished that. Tully was also an outstanding singles wrestler. Held all kinds of titles. And anytime you get into a group of fans or historians and say, you know, what were some of the greatest matches of all time? Well, if not at the top of the list, high on the list, and somebody mentioned it early on the highlight thing, Starrcade '85 in Greensboro, North Carolina was the first ever I Quit match. Magnum TA challenging Tully for the U.S. Heavyweight Championship that night. And it was contested inside a steel cage. And of course, Baby Doll, Perfect 10, was with him that night. And during the match, she threw a chair over the top of the ring. It broke into smithereens. And it was a brutal match, and in the end, Magnum had a piece of board, and it was in his eye, his head, I don't know where it was, but the referee awarded the match, and the title went to Magnum TA, and by the way, Magnum's going to be honored this year too in Waterloo. For the record, Tully Blanchard never uttered the words, "I quit," even though the title won. That's true. I'll set the record straight, and he also, I had a chance to manage him later, and he regained the title. I'm not taking credit for that, he deserves all that credit. And we have become extremely close as members of the Four Horsemen. It's certainly the pinnacle of my career. It's hard to explain to somebody the genuine affection and camaraderie that exists between Ole and Tully, Arn, Ben H, and Barry Windham. There was a chemistry among us that it's hard to describe to anybody else. And 25 years later, we're still the best of friends. And it's a friendship that will last a lifetime. So this time, please help me welcome the recipient of the Cauliflower Alley Iron Lake Award for 2017. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a horseman, but for me, most of all, he's my friend, Tully Blanchard.
Oh, golly. 5 minutes to 9. Oh, you're chuckling. I used to be long-winded. The last time I stood in front of a group of people to talk about anything was in a prison someplace, and they were all dressed in the same outfit, and they didn't want to be there. Some of you guys don't want to be here right now because It's been a long evening. Great food, great fellowship. I will be concise. I've only got 4 pages. Not really. But when I got the phone call that I was going to receive the Iron Mike Award at the Cauliflower Alley Club, my mind immediately shot back to when I was 10 years old. And Iron Mike was in my kitchen, talking to my dad. That was just amazing that this guy that was in a movie with John Wayne was in my kitchen. And then as you get older and you learn, and the people that I got to meet and poured into my life, the Red Bastines, the Nick Bockwinkel's, but even more, Luthez. 37-year world champion, used to stay at my house and teach me over breakfast as he cooked, over dinner as he made meatloaf and stuck cloves of garlic in it. And I listened, and I listened, and I listened, and I listened. Because I'm not the biggest guy. And as Jim alluded to, I had to be better than most because I was a promoter's kid. And promoter's kids didn't actually get good treatment all the time. And I worked, and I worked. And my dad quickly told me one thing. He said, you know, it took Nick Bockwinkel 10 years to realize that he was not a good babyface and to switch heel. He said, we need to do that with you because you're not a good babyface. And I said, I know. I switched heel, our business tripled, and Wahoo McDaniels taught me how to get heat, get beat up, and sell tickets for 2 years. Every night. Hit me, beat me up, shoot me in, chop, bam. People tell me, oh, that ain't real. And I go, blood running down my chest. How much more real can you get? And then the next season of my life was wrestling Buddy Roberts, who was wrestling as Dale Valentine because John had come to work for my dad, and to go to the ring every night and back to the ring and sit there and listen to John Valentine critique every move, every night. The knowledge that was going in. And that helped our business. But I would be remiss if I did not say to you what I consider the most important thing to feed the knowledge and my ultimate success in this business was the 3 years that I refereed in the summer when I was in college. I refereed 6 matches a night. I refereed the opening match to the last match. As Kevin mentioned, the matches underneath that were guys just finishing their career or starting a career, but you were right there and you watched it. You listened to the crowd respond, and then you got to go to the ring with Jose Lothario and Mil Mascaras, and you want to see how it happened and how they sold and how the angles were, and you were in the middle of everything. And you learned the timing that was successful. And to do that in world championship matches, an hour Broadways, and Dory Funk for an hour. It was unbelievable how that vaulted my career. And then our business plummeted. Things happened. I went to North Carolina. North Carolina was down at that time in 1984. Wahoo McDaniel switched heel. That makes sense. But it worked. The first sellout we had in 1984 in the Greensboro Coliseum was Wahoo McDaniels and myself against Blackjack Mulligan and Ric Flair. And that started Dusty Rhodes' reign in that territory. And it was nothing, you couldn't, it was like run free horses after that. The people had got back, the people got excited about wrestling. And things were just unbelievable. Every night, all over the country, you were in a sellout. I cannot remember when it wasn't a sellout someplace, from the West Coast to the East Coast. Cable television was taking over. WCW was monster. USA Network and WWE was monster. And that's what the wrestling business was going through in the 80s. Arn and I met with Vince and decided that we needed to go to the WWF at that time, at the end of 1988. Phenomenal experience to walk in Madison Square Gardens. Phenomenal experience to walk in the Boston Garden. I was talking to somebody from Boston here this week. I was a huge Celtics fan growing up, and to walk into the garden when it's empty and see the banners, golly, to work for Pat Patterson and get the knowledge from him. And the other agents, Tony and Strongbow and Lanza, and I'm 63 now, so I'm a little bit forgetful. But that part of my life was so much, we had fun every night. You got to go out and entertain people, and it was unbelievable. Go to the ring with Ricky Steamboat in Greensboro Coliseum. Oh my gosh. Every time he moved his little finger, 16,000 people screamed. And all you had to do was pull his tights and blink twice. It was unbelievable. And all you had to do was take bumps, just get beat up, and collect a check. It was phenomenal. But then life comes to making choices, because the Iron Mike Award is not just the wrestling business, but what you do outside the wrestling business. My career ended full-time in 1989. I'd made a bad choice one night in Madison, Wisconsin, and the next morning I got to Philadelphia at a 2 o'clock show in the Spectrum, and it said piss test on the wall. Well, you can't snort at 4 and be clean at 2, just in case nobody in here knew that. I flunked a drug test that day. November 2nd, 1989, Vince called me on the telephone. We were in Rochester, Illinois, and he asked me a question, and I didn't have an answer for him. He said, "What are you doing with your life?" And I couldn't answer him. I just kind of made some noise. He said, "Turn your airplane tickets in and go home." So I did. I negotiated a deal with WCW. Arn and I had a $750,000 contract set. I thought that was good. And they didn't have a drug policy, so I really thought I was good. Everything was fine until November 13th, when Ric Flair called me at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he said, they found out about your drug test, and they're not going to honor their contract. At 35 years old, I went from world champion, superstar, to unemployed. And ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, I did not handle that real well. A lot of times you might cuss, throw stuff, whatever. I was so mad, I couldn't move. I laid in my bed, and I was paralyzed, except my brain was going at light speed. And at 4:03 in the morning, I said 5 words that changed everything in my life. I said, Jesus, take over my life. And it was the first time I'd ever used the name Jesus when I wasn't cussing somebody. I wasn't raised in church. That was not the way we did that stuff. I always thought church was for weak-minded people that needed a crutch. Not us, especially the people in this business, because we manipulate people. When you walk out of the dressing room and you go in front of an audience of 18,000 people and you get them to do what you want them to do when you want it done, how could anything be any greater than you? And to think an impossible and invisible God were actually possible. But instantaneously, when I said those 5 words, there was a calmness that came over me. I have been telling people that story for 27 years. That there is a second chance. Just because you're sitting in a prison yard, there is a second chance if you start walking a different path. It is not logical at 35 years old for me, where I was in this business, to just be gone. I'm not the only guy that ever flunked a drug test. Am I, Pat? Didn't mean to put you on the spot. They all went back to work. They all sold tickets. They all performed. But every time I tried to get back in this business, the door got slammed in my face. I never understood that for many years. I lost all the money that I'd saved. It was insanity. But God had put me on a different path. And at 63 years old, I'm quite happy with that. I missed all the Monday night insanity on live television that would make my autograph fee a lot more than it is now. But the people's lives that I've been able to go talk to, and the prisons across this country, are well worth it. And today, that's what I have done with the rest of my life. And I continue to do that. To tell people that you don't have to live on drugs and alcohol. You don't have to cover the pain. You can get relief. And you can walk a different path. And people respond to that. And I am thankful. I am very thankful to be able to come up and tell you that story. I'm very thankful for the Cauliflower Alley Club, because in 1961, Nick Bachmanville lived across the alley in a duplex across from my family. I'm very thankful that I saw Nick Kozak, who used to take me surfing when I was in high school. Reggie Parks, the guys that I used to referee their matches when I was in college. The Terry and Dory Funk, who recruited me to go to West Texas State after SMU. And Marshall, your grandfather, recruited me to go to SMU out of high school. You didn't know that, I bet. This is a great organization. The things that they do for people that have gone to hard times, it's worth it. I want to thank the board of the Cauliflower Alley Club for honoring me with this award. I want to say God bless you as you go out these doors tonight. Thank you for attending this year. God bless each and every one of you.
Isn't that cool? That's great stuff. That's Cauliflower Alley for you. So everybody should be member, support, spread the word. Can you imagine how wonderful it would be here if we all just get one more person to join? It'd be something to think about. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. It's always good to see you guys. And I'll turn the program over to these other yahoos.
And Joe, have a nice hand for our host tonight, Mr. Jim Ross.
Yeah.